One of them's on pollution, and he says that the World Bank indicates that 3.7 billion people, so about half the world's population, are exposed to this metric of PM 2.5 that has to do with like the size of particles in the air. They're exposed to around 5 times the unit of measure that he correlates with a bunch of things, which include lower GDP. It includes stock market returns being lower, people making worse decisions, like chess players making mistakes, politicians using less complex speech. So those are just some fun facts. But I think what's really important is obviously the health side of things. And there's another stat that I'll just quickly share, which is from a newsletter called Charter, which says that India's capital, this was recently, breached the 450 mark on the air quality index, over 4 times the healthy level. And basically, they're in this hazardous zone, which is akin to smoking 25 to 30 cigarettes a day. And obviously, that is an outlier. But I wanted to call this out because I think air quality is something that is a problem in a lot of places, clearly. Some more than others, but it's something that I think people are going to be caring about a lot more. And maybe one product that came out in the last year or so that's indicative of that a lot of people made fun of was the Dyson Mask headphones. So I'll stop there.
What were those?
Yeah, I never saw those.
They are headphones that have a basically a mask, a air purifier attached to them.
Wow. And they're expensive. They're $1,000, I think, right?
They are $700 from what I can see.
And what, this came out and people just made fun of them? Well, if you Google images, it's like a white guy in like the New York subway wearing it. You know what I mean? So, like it's a little off on, because you're talking about India and a few other countries, not maybe the New York subway. So it's kind of like a misleading ad they have, but that's pretty fascinating. Are these taking off?
No, I think they're in that zone of a lot of people making fun of them. However, the reason I'm calling this out is because I think there is this understanding that, it's just in New Delhi. It's not, anywhere close to home. But I think, have you guys ever used like an air quality index measure in your home or like a CO2 monitor?
Yeah, I have multiple times. And I bought like these air purifier things that also measure the air quality in my house, and I have them, and it's like shocking whenever it'll like it basically turns red, and it's like, oh god, there's something going on. What we need to air this place out or whatever.
Yeah. So I mean, air quality changes over time, and I don't know. I've been noticing more even in San Francisco a few days where people are like, oh, I'm wearing a mask to work, not because of COVID, but because like, oh gosh, like have you checked the air quality? And a lot of people aren't doing this still today, but I think that'll change. And I think if you use some of these, like the CO2 monitor, for example, you literally, like, if you go to bed with your door closed and you wake up and you check that thing, it is wild how high it is. And, all you need to do is open a window or, circulate the air in your home. But I think as the stuff, I guess, is people are more educated on it, I think some of these devices like the air quality monitors are going to take off. And you can see some of this data in Jungle Scout as well, of just like the kinds of products that people are buying.
Do you see, what did you see, I think, in Jungle Scout that stood out? Any product that's doing well?
So there's one product which is has to do with an AC furnace and an air filter. But guess how much this thing sells every single month?
What is it?
It's an AC furnace air filter and an air quality monitor.
And so what does that mean? Literally like the filter I put on the vents of my, like I've got like 8 vents around my home, and I put these like filters there. Is that what you're referring to? Like those, like the cloth almost filters?
It's a filter you would put on your furnace.
Got it. Okay.
All right. So what I'm looking at here is, like the kind of standard air vent filters that you have to swap out every 6 months or so. But also it's a smart one, so it has like a monitor associated with it that has an app. This thing costs $250. I have no idea, but sounds like it might be a little high. So tell us, what does Jungle Scout tell us for the revenue?
So I'm seeing 4 entries in Jungle Scout, and they are 17 million, 12 million, 8 million, and 8 million. So what is that all total? That's like over $40 million per month. This is what Jungle Scout is saying. So, take it with a grain of salt. I'm not sure how they measure, but they tend to be pretty accurate. And so that's an example of, I think, as people, again, like try to understand the air quality around them, I think there's a growing business here.
That is fascinating. I want to point out another thing. So this chart that you have of like causes of death. So the top, let's see, risk factors. I think I might have chosen the United States here, but in the United States, I believe the top ones are smoking, number one, high blood pressure, high blood sugar, and obesity. So I've a crazy story to tell you. So I can't say his name because he asked me not to, or he said he prefers to stay under the radar. But I have a friend who is an investor, and he's a very different kind of investor. So what you see on Twitter often is people who are investors, they like to be loud about what they do. They'll just kind of spray and pray. They're doing a lot of deals. They love to be angels in 50 things, putting 20K checks. My friend is very different. He says that in every year, there's like one thing that matters, maybe two. And his whole job is to just find the one or two things that matter. And so I've known him for, maybe 10 years now. And at one time it was like, he's like, Bitcoin. It's Bitcoin right now. And I was like, Bitcoin, really? Like, you sure? And this is like, let's say, I don't know, 2013, 2014, 2015, somewhere there. He's like, it's Bitcoin. And then he was the one who was like, OnlyFans. I'm all in on OnlyFans. And I was like, OnlyFans? What is that? This is before any of the revenue numbers had come out about OnlyFans. He's like, I think, and I was at Twitch at the time, and he's like, OnlyFans is bigger than Twitch, or it's going to be bigger than Twitch. And I was like, no, dude, Twitch is like one of the biggest internet sites on earth. And he's like, trust me, it's going to be bigger. And he's like called it basically each year. And he doesn't necessarily always get to invest, but he's trying to identify what is the thing.
Did he get in on those?
Yeah. So like for a couple of these, yeah, he's got the ones I mentioned so far. He did. So then he texted me the other day and he goes, GLP greater than GPT. So this is like, I talked to him maybe, I don't know, 9 months or a year ago. And he was like, yeah, I think this Ozempic stuff is the thing for the year. And I was like, really? Like, isn't it AI? He's like, no, I think GLP is bigger than GPT. And I was like, well, what do you mean? He's like, I'm trying to figure out the right way to invest in this. Cause they're all like, basically Ozempic and the makers of these are all public stock. So he's like, I could buy that, but the upside's not exactly there. So I'm trying to figure out what's the move. And he told me, he's like, there was one company I invested in several years ago that might actually be a beneficiary of it. So yesterday he sends me an article. Carmo, this pharmaceutical company got bought for $3 billion yesterday. And that they are a maker of GLP drugs. He was an early investor in it. He invested in it like 7 years ago or something. And I was like, dude, how did you get in on this? He's like, well, at the time, this all wasn't clear. I can't say that I definitely didn't know about that. But it was, these guys were drug makers that were attacking obesity drugs in a different way. And, just looking at the charts about what kills everybody, like the obesity is a massive, massive problem. There's not that many interesting bets of who's attacking obesity in a different way. These guys were one of them, and I like their team and whatnot. So I invested early on. And I was like, geez, man, like just to have like a $3 billion exit out of nowhere, kind of amazing.
What do you think his return on that was?
I don't want to say, but he got in fairly early, and 3 billion is a big number. So I think he did extremely well on that one. But what I will say is that he kind of looks at these like mega trends, and this is kind of what you're showing here, Steph, is that if you understand how big the wave is, then it kind of simplifies life. You can ignore all small waves if you know what the the big tidal waves are, and you just figure out, okay, what's the best way to surf this? And even if you don't figure out the best way, even the fourth best way to surf a mega trend is gonna work in your favor. And I've heard this now from a few investors, but also Mark Zuckerberg said this a while back. Like I remember when we were working on some app that was like a messaging app, like text messaging app. And this was maybe 2015 or something. And it seemed like text messaging was the big thing. And Zuck came out and he goes, there's only a few mega trends. Mobile was the last one. And then the new one is video. He goes, video is a mega trend. Everything is moving to video. People are kind of going to communicate through video. They're watching more and more video, short video, long video, medium-sized video, scripted videos, UGC videos. It's all going to video. And I had never heard anyone say this word megatrend. And when Zuck said that, I started to pay attention. And we actually ended up pivoting our company into video streaming, live video. We were like, oh, we'll go for live video. And that's the company that got bought when we got acquired by Twitch, is because we were just partially in the right space. Like live video streaming, there weren't that many people working on it in an interesting way, but live video kept growing at this like really fast rate. And so it was smart to get out of the text game and get on the right mega trend.
Yeah. Something I'll mention about the air quality stuff that's related to what you said there, Sean, is I feel like one missing gap with air quality readings and devices and all that is it's not obvious. As in, I feel like most people would be surprised to be like, oh my gosh, I inhale all this stuff and it has these adverse effects and it's, it ranks here on, the likelihood of death. But it's not obvious. It's not in your face. Like, let's say, like the GLP-1s, people see themselves every day and they're constantly trying to improve their image and how other people interpret them. So I think maybe one thing that if someone was going to go figure this out, you guys have talked about the water filters. People go into your home and they're
bring that
like,
up.
they say like, did you know, like you're drinking like this much of like basically like rocks and other sediment and lead in your water. Can you believe it? And they show you. And so I feel like there's an element of that, whereas it's going to take a while for people to really care about the air quality stuff, but there may be some middle ground where some company is able to effectively give people that aha.
Yeah, I would put it differently. I don't think it's going to take a while. I think it's going to take a marketer for people to care.
Yeah.
It's just going to take a marketer and a product design that puts it in your face and that educates you about this and kind of scares you about it, but then says, don't worry, there's a solution.
Yeah.
And that's how a lot of things get done is, a great marketer or a product designer figures out the way to put it in your face.
Did you guys remember what Rob Dyrdek said? So Rob Dyrdek came on and he didn't spend too much time talking about this, but he said he bought a good chunk of a company that is doing water filters for showers.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got a bunch of friends that are like health freaks. So Justin Mayers is one of them, where he's a health freak and he's a great entrepreneur. And he was like, man, I installed this really expensive, basically Berkeley filter, which is that big metal. It's like those metal jugs that you see in people's homes. And he's like, I wanted to install one for my whole home because I wanted my shower water to also be completely filtered. And I went through this whole ordeal to do this. And then Rob Dyrdek invested in this company that is basically making a shower head that is a filter. So it's ideally simplifying that entire process. He talked about that on this podcast, but he didn't spend too much time talking about it. And I went and researched a bit of it. I think that is going to be a pretty big company. And I think there's going to be a whole, I imagine it's going to be like a boxed mattress trend where no one has them, and then suddenly many people have them, and there's tons and tons of competition. Because I don't think that's quite that hard of a company to create. I don't know what the mode is entirely, but I imagine there's going to be a whole bunch of people in that space, and so I'm pretty much on board with what he said, and I think you have an interesting insight with the particularly with the AC vents. That's another product that literally everyone has in their home. You have to replace it 2 or 3 times a year. And it's a really, really easy Instagram ad to make.
All right, let's go to the next one. What else you got?
All right, next one in here is Gadget Flow. So this is just an interesting site that aggregates gadgets, trending gadgets. I want to call it 2 things here. The first is if you look at the most popular gadgets, you might say, well, what's the opportunity here, right? Like, I'm not going to create a drone like DJI. I'm not going to create the next AR, VR device. Apple's doing that. Meta's doing that. Like, there's no opportunity. But I just wanted to call out that every time there's a new device that ends up penetrating a lot of people's homes or wallets, there's almost always an opportunity for accessories. So a good example that we covered years ago, Sam, on Trends was AirPods.
And you have got a crazy stat on that. You've got a crazy AirPods stat.
This was forever ago. I wonder what it is now. But back then it was like early on in the AirPod journey. And it was like AirPods, if it was a standalone company, would be in the Fortune 50 or something like that. And it was like, whoa.
I think your stat was like AirPods make more revenue than like Spotify, Snapchat, and Airbnb combined.
Yeah, I think Twitter was in that
wild.
too. It was, and that was in 2019 or 2020. And so now there's some crazy stats with AirPods, which is just like 70% of all US teens have AirPods. Like that is like true penetration. And so early on in that trend, it's like, okay, there's like cases, there's, I'm trying to remember like keychains, really simple stuff. But I think what is worth just understanding or what you can take away from this Gadget Flow website is like, okay, what are the newest devices that are not going to have the scale of like hundreds or thousands of people using them, but millions or hundreds of millions? and what are the adjacent accessories or products that I can create.
So how do you use Gadget Flow?
So Gadget Flow is not as much of like, a searchable database like something like Jungle Scout, but it's more so just what I would do if I came to this page is first I would look at the drop down of most popular, right? So that's where you're going to see some of those big devices. And then the other takeaway is some of the drop down categories, I think. So the one that caught my eye was pet